Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayat Nastapreshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Utamashloke Bhaktir Bhagavati Naishtaki Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Sarasvati Deve Gauravani Pacharane Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Paskita Deshatarane. Srimad Bhāgavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 19, the killing of the demon Hiranyaksha, beginning with verse 7. Satam Nishamyata Ratangam Agrato Vivastitam Padma Pulasalochanam Vilokya Chamarsha Pariplutendriyo Rushasvadanta Chadam Adasak Chvasan. When the demon saw the personality of Godhead, who had eyes just like lotus petals, standing in position before him, armed with his Sudarshan discus, his senses were overpowered by indignation. He began to hiss like a serpent, and he bit his lip in great resentment. So the demons, even when they are faced with the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead standing before them, and understanding the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the absolute truth, is infallible, empowered with weapons, the Sudarshan Chakra, that are certainly meant for their death. Do they bow? Do they say, "You got me? Yeah, I surrender"? They become even more angry. Demons have to be of this caliber. They have to be killed. They can't be reformed. They can't be, in that present condition, they have to be annihilated. And Krishna himself says, to annihilate the miscreant, Vinashaya Tajuskritam. He appears. Text 8. Karala Jamstras Chaksurbhyam Sanchakshano Dananiva Abhiplutya Svagadaya Hato Siti Ahanadarim. The demon, who had fearful tusks, stared at the personality of Godhead as though to burn him. Springing into the air, he aimed his mace at the Lord, exclaiming at the same time, "You are slain." So the demons think that their sophistry and their very advanced in their idea, scientific presentation, their very avant-garde, new, and according to themselves, never before seen ways of intense sense gratification are enough to snuff out and destroy any religious sentiment in people, and make it very, very clear that anybody with any brain and intelligence will certainly only have to accept their version. They employ all types of propaganda, all types of propaganda, media, the so-called news. This is the way that it is. You are slain. Text 9. Pada savyena tam sadho Bhagavan Yagna Sukara Lilaya Misata Satro Parad Vata Ramhasam. Praharad. O saintly Vidura, while his enemy looked on, the Lord, in his boar form, the enjoyer of all sacrificial offerings, playfully knocked down the mace with his left foot, even as it came upon him with the force of a tempest. We see the small little representatives of Hiranyaksha sometimes they become so angry when they see the Harinam party that they practically turn red like a beet and they're yelling and screaming at the top of their lungs. They just completely lose all their steadiness or stability of mind, if they ever had any to begin with. But it makes us even more blissful to chant, and that makes them even more angry. You can look on YouTube, Hare Krishna, I forget what it's called, Christianity, Times Square, New Year's 2014, and these, Bible-thumping, burn-in-hell, born-again Christians came from somewhere out in the corn patch in the middle of the country to preach to all us heathens here in New York City, and they had like a big giant cross and, all these like big fearful signs, turn or burn and damnation and smitten and whatever of other kind of words they use, And they had like an 8 or 9 year old boy with a loudspeaker, and he'd go, "You're all going to hell!" and right in front of the kirtan party, and we had like a nice kirtan party like yesterday, and we were just like, and people were just amazed to see the spectacle, Actually, they make themselves look more ridiculous by doing like that, because you people aren't affected by our preaching, by our dissemination of the absolute truth that you got to accept, quote unquote, or, there is no other way, and we don't care about their preaching, how angry they become. Is it freezing cold? Yes. Nice technique would be to take the thing out of the refrigerator sometime so it's a little not as cold, especially in the wintertime. Maybe if it's 95 degrees, then, okay. Text 10. Aha shudam adastva gatsavatvam jigissasi iti yukta svatada bhuyas tarayan vyanadad brisam. The Lord then said, "Take up your weapon and try again. Eager as you are to conquer me, that's all you got? Come on. You got better than that." Challenged in these words, the demon aimed his mace at the Lord and once more loudly roared. Text 11. Tam sa apatatim vikshya bhagavan samavastita jagra lilaya prapatam garutman eva panagim. When the Lord saw the mace flying toward him, he stood firmly where he was and caught it with the same ease as Garuda, the king of birds, would seize a serpent. Text 12. Saparoshe pratiyate hata mano mahasura naichad gadam divyamanam harina vigata prabha. His valor thus frustrated, the great demon felt humiliated and was put out of countenance. He was reluctant to take back the mace when it was offered by the personality of Godhead. Text 13. Jagra tri sikam sulam chavalaj dralana lolupam yagnaya drita rupaya vipra yabi charanyata. He now took a trident which was as rapacious as a flaming fire, and hurled it against the Lord, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, even as one would use penance for a malevolent purpose against a holy Brahmana. So this is a a very standard internal defect in this age of Kali that every one of us should look out for. Nadanam najanam nasundarim. I don't want any material thing which can only be achieved through penance and austerity. In one of the older Bhagavad Gitas, there's an illustration of approaching demigods for these things: scholarship, beautiful opposite sex. Hare Krishna, Shishi Radha Govinda Ki Jai. What else? Diploma, money. And the demigod is awarding it from above, but the diploma and the other thing, the actual being handed to the eager conditioned soul, is the Grim Reaper. It's like a skeleton in a shroud, in a cape, you know. They're certainly meant for death. So, part and parcel of getting ahead in the material world is that there's great competition. You know, I want that position. I want that beautiful or handsome opposite sex. Me first, not you. So we should be careful to see, are we approaching association in the society of devotees with the same way? Do we have any kind of, well, I've been a devotee for this long, I've been doing this much penance and austerity, I should be noticed. Who are these other people? I'm better. I'm going to climb the ladder. I'm going to be the best. Ask not for whom the bell tolls. The bell tolls for thee. Even as one would use penance for a malevolent purpose against a holy Brahmana. So, our position as devotees is to become very advanced, and one of the most recommended ways to become an advanced devotee is to consider oneself and actually become the servant of 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 Lord Sri Krishna, who maintains the Gopi damsels of Brajadam. Prabhupada says very succinctly in one place, that is the way of self-realization. Prabhupada said, the more one becomes the servant, the more one actually advances. Material world is the opposite. Everyone should serve me. And the more there's servants serving that servant, the servant who serve me, then I'm the greatest. I'm the most advanced. So in the material world, such things are the standard, because it's a world of the cheaters and the cheated. It's a world of illusion. In the chapter Divisions of Faith, it's described that penance and austerity in the mode of passion to put oneself in a very high position that one can be worshipped and one could take money and et cetera, from others. You can do, but the results of such things are temporary and cannot be maintained permanently. Pride cometh before the fall. And the, what is it? I can't think of the right word, but the, let's say the tragic irony is that the people that you had to step on climbing up many times, if not in this life, but by karma in the next life, you have to meet those same people on your, let's say, in the process of being deflated and removed from your false ego. So it's very humiliating. So everything is a duality. You enjoy the intoxication of pride, but then you have to suffer the humiliation of scorn and ridicule. So a devotee's position is always very, very steady. And within that steadiness is the true ecstasy and happiness that we seek. Because our constitutional position, the position of reality, is Gopi Bharta Padakamalu, or Das, Anudas, Anudas. He now took a trident, which was this rapacious. I know what it means, but let's hear the dictionary definite. Rapacious. As a flaming fire, and hurled it against the Lord, the enjoyer of all sacrifices, even as one would use penance for malevolent purpose against the holy Brahma. So the demoniac person, when they actually become angry and they're like, actually we're doing them a favor because we're giving them the facility to very, very quickly, or more fast, because they can't do it the proper way. So by making offense and aparad, then the reaction will be there, and they'll be more in a position to actually come to their true senses sooner than later. Hari Bol.
Excessively grasping.
Excessively grasping? Synonyms, word use in a sentence? I can't hear. Excessively greedy. Okay. Now text 14, which has a purport. Hari Bol. And we're all going to try to say together. Tad Ojasa Daitya Maha Bhaktarpitam Chakasad Anta Ka Udirna Didati Chakrena Chidheda Nishata Nimina Harer Yata Tarksha Patatram Ujitam. Tad Ojasa Daitya Maha Patarpitam Chakashad Anta Ka Udirna Didhati Chakrena Chidheda Nishata Nimina Hareryata Tarksha Patatram Ujitam. Tad Ojasa Daitya Mahapatarpitam Chakashad Antaka Udirna Didhati Chakrena Chidheda Nishata Nimina Hareryata Tarksha Patatram Ujitam. Tad Ojasa Daitya Mahabatarpitam Chakasad Antaka Udirna Didhati Chakrena Chidheda Nishata Nimina Hareryata Tarksha Patatram Ujitam. ladies. Taught that trident, Ojasa, with all his strength, Daitya, among the demons, Mahabhata, by the mighty fighter, Arpitam, hurled, Chakasat, shining, Antake, in the middle of the sky, Urdina, increased, Didhiti, illumination, Chakrena, by the Sudarshan disc, Chikteda, he cut to pieces, Nishata, sharpened, Nimina, rim, Hari, Indra, Yata, as, Tarksha, of Garuda, Patatram, the wing, Ujitam, abandoned, translation. Hurled by the mighty demon with all his strength, the flying trident shone brightly in the sky. The personality of Godhead, however, tore it to pieces with his discus Sudarshan, which had a sharp-edged rim, even as Indra cut off a wing of Garuda. Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The context of the reference given herein regarding Garuda and Indra is this. Once upon a time, Garuda, the carrier of the Lord, snatched away a nectar pot from the hands of the demigods in heaven in order to liberate his mother, Vinata, from the clutches of his stepmother, Kadru, the mother of the serpents. On learning of this, Indra, the king of heaven, hurled his thunderbolt against Garuda. With a view to respect the infallibility of Indra's weapon, Garuda, though otherwise invincible, being the Lord's own mount, dropped one of his wings, which was shattered to pieces by the thunderbolt. The inhabitants of higher planets are so sensible that even in the process of fighting, they observe the preliminary rules and regulations of gentleness. In this case, Garuda wanted to show respect for Indra, since he knew that Indra's weapon must destroy something. He offered his wing. Om Jnanatirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Nitam Dina Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Svapadantitam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sahagana Raganatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lita Shri Vishaka Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabando Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Dibyad Brindaranya Kalpadru Mada Srimad Ratnagara Singasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Pistalabi Savyamano Smarami Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyas Cha Kripasandubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktabinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hurled by the mighty demon with all his strength, the flying trident shone brightly in the sky. The personality of Godhead, however, tore it to pieces with his discus, Sudarshan, which had a sharp-edged rim, even as Indra cut off a wing of Garuda. So the battle is becoming much more serious. The preliminary taunting and attempts to insult and egg on to, come on, is that all you got? Bring it on, let's see. That's all complete, and now the fight is going on in earnest. We'll stop here and, stop, okay, that's it. But we won't go any further. But the class giver, because it's on the schedule, who's going to give class on verse 15. But we'll read a little more, or we'll pick here and there. The demon was engaged with his trident, was enraged when his trident was cut to pieces. He therefore advanced towards the Lord, roaring aloud, struck his hard fist against the Lord's broad chest, which bore the mark of Shivatsa. Then he went out of sight. So his trident has been cut to pieces. He's realizing now he's striking with his hard fist. Nothing's happening, not even the slightest. So now what does he do? He disappears and resorts to all different types of illusory tricks, conjure up some type of like false propaganda, some type of false narration. Fierce winds began to blow from all directions, spreading darkness occasioned by dust and hailstorms. Stones came in volleys from every corner, as if thrown by machine guns. The luminaries in outer space disappeared due to the skies being overcast with masses of clouds, which were accompanied by lightning and thunder. The sky rained, this is directly out of hell, pus, hair, blood, stool, urine, and bones. Sometimes this describes a wild night in New York City. Mountains, not this one. Mountains discharged weapons of various kinds, and naked demonesses armed with tridents appeared with their hair hanging loose. Cruel and savage slogans uttered by a host of ruffian yakshas and rakshasas who all marched on foot or rode on horses, elephants, or chariots. In another pastime, the cruel and savage slogans uttered by hosts of ruffians, yakshas, and rakshasas, a little sample were, chop him up, pierce him, cut him. The Lord, the personal enjoyer of all sacrifices, now discharged his beloved Sudarshan, which was capable of dispersing the magical forces displayed by the demon. Sangopangustra Parshadam, his weapon, Lord Krishna's weapon as Lord Chaitanya, in the epic Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami has devoted a very important chapter to prove and substantiate beyond a shadow of a doubt that Lord Chaitanya is non-different than Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And part of his masterful presentation is describing that the very same Lord Krishna who appeared in the Dwapara Yuga with his armies and weapons has come as Lord Chaitanya, and his weapon is the Sankirtan movement, the chanting of the holy names. So they can utter their cruel and savage slogans. They can appear before us naked with their hair hanging loose. They can do whatever they want. They can rain down pus, hair, blood, stool, urine, and bones. But we will not budge an inch from our determination to propagate the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya as ordered and confirmed by our spiritual master and all the acharyas in disciplic succession, especially the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan, of whom the most prolific and scholarly was the youngest of the 6 Goswamis, Srila Jiva Goswami, whose disappearance day is today, whom we will say more about in just a little bit. I'm going to conclude here and ask for questions or comments, but first I would like to ask if anyone is a little more learned than myself, perhaps Arjunananda, on what's mentioned in the purport here of this pastime of Garuda and Indra, and is actually, as described here, dropping his wing to substantiate or to prove that this thunderbolt weapon of Indra is infallible. We know in the pastime of Brittasura, he's, what to speak of allowing Indra, he's actually encouraging him and instructing him to kill him with the thunderbolt that has been empowered by Lord Vishnu directly. That's a different pastime. So, any information on this? Gopal Champu, Krishna Kripa? I think the main point here is that in this case, Garuda, the inhabitants of the higher planets are so sensible that even in the process of fighting, they observe the preliminary rules and regulations of gentleness. These days, the way the demons fight is just nothing held back, anything goes, whatever type of psyop or cheating or just plain, whatever it is, just to get the job done in accord with their idea. Even when we see such an obnoxious fellow as Duryodhana and the Kauravas, of whom the whole battle of Kurukshetra came to that point because of their demoniac nature, even they observed the rules of combat. Bhishma Dev himself, he was unfortunately in a position where he had to fight, as Prabhupada says, on the wrong side. Even such a great fighter as Bhishma Dev has to understand that there's no victory if you fight on the side that opposes Krishna and the purpose of Krishna. So, unless Krishna breaks his promise to not take up a weapon, I will fight so strongly tomorrow that his dear friend Arjuna would die. So right at the time of sunset, which was the exact, as soon as the sun went completely, was it completely below the meridian, right? There's the sun disk, it begins to go below the horizon. But is the etiquette, is the rule that when it completely disappears right at that moment? Or is it right at the beginning? It's a technical question. Completely. Yeah, that's what I would think also. So right at that moment, Bhishma Dev, Krishna had the chariot wheel, was ready to kill Bhishma Dev. Right at that moment. And then the whole battlefield, okay, everyone stopped. Millions and millions of fighters engaged in their various, it all stopped right on that moment. Everyone followed that etiquette. Wouldn't even dream of such a thing today, day and night, inside, outside, whatever, No respect for the civilian population. I saw some story that on Christmas Eve, 1944, in the Battle of the Bulge, that's the Western Allies pushing from France into Germany, the Adrian Mountains, that a pacifist couple had fled the city and taken up residence in a forest cabin, but they didn't know that the battle was going to be there. So it was a snowy Christmas Eve, and 3 American soldiers came to their door. One was very badly wounded. They were freezing cold, starving. They invited them in. They're German people, but they were like, I have nothing to do with this. And then, just like an hour later, knock, knock, 3 German soldiers come in, and the couple, especially the wife, was like, look, this is Christmas, and, you're all hungry, you're all starving, you're all cold, 2 of you are wounded, there's going to be peace at this table. They had like potatoes and bread and soup or something, and so, and they behaved themselves, and they left, they parted company Christmas Day, and that there was some like reunion from some of the surviving soldiers like 50 years later, and they were like great friends like that. So anyway, rules of etiquette. All right, so Jiva Goswami, Prabhupada writes a very nice purport in the Adi Leela chapter 10, which is a beautiful description of all the most important of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda's. Well, chapter 10 is mostly Lord Chaitanya's associates. Chapter 11 is Lord Nityananda's associates. Comparing them to numbered branches on the tree of Lord Chaitanya. Text 85, chapter 10. Tanra Madhye Rupa Sanatan Bada Shaka Anupam Jiva Rajanjadi Upasaka. Among these branches, Rupa and Sanatan were principal. Anupam, Jiva Goswami, and others, headed by Rajendra, were their sub-branches. Prabhupada gets right to the point. In the Gaura Gonadesh Deepika, it is said that Srila Jiva Goswami was formerly Vilas Manjari Gopi. So as there are Astasakis, Lalita, Vishaka, Tungavidya, Chitra, Sudevi, Rangadevi, etc., etc. So there are 8 corresponding Asta Manjaris, the 6 Goswamis, and also Bhugarbha and Lokanath Goswami, and are sometimes referred to as the 8 Goswamis of Vrindavan. From his very childhood, Jiva Goswami was greatly fond of Srimad Bhāgavatam. He later came to Navadvip to study Sanskrit, and following in the footsteps of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, he circumambulated the entire Navadvip Dham. What is that wonderful book? Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. After visiting Navadvip Dham, he went to Benares to study Sanskrit under Madhusudana Vachaspati. And after finishing his studies in Benares, he went to Vrindavan and took shelter of his uncles, Sri, Rupa, and Sanatan. So this is a proper example of studying Sanskrit. What do you do after that? You go and you serve the predecessor acharyas in Sri Vrindavan Dham. And Srila Prabhupada has expanded Sri Vrindavan Dham all over the world in the form of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. If you read the latter part of the 7th canto, Maharaj Yudhishthira instructed by Sri Narada Muni, Narada Muni in the chapter Instructions for Civilized Human Beings. That sounds pretty nice, right? Instructions for civilized human beings. Not hosts of ruffians uttering cruel and savage slogans with their hair hanging loose, right? But civilized human beings. Actually, our job is to convert the cruel and savage slogan uttering ruffians with their hair hanging loose into civilized human beings. Dina China Jatachilo Harinam Udarilo. The power of the holy name is so great. The story of Jagai and Madai is testimony to this. If there's not immediate results, Bhaja Bhaja Bhai, Chaitanya Nitai, Surida Vishvashakori. Don't think that this chanting and dancing won't lead to the desired result of changing ruffians into civilized human beings. It will. One must have firm conviction and faith, and we have to keep doing it. took shelter of his uncles, Sri Rupa and Sanatan. This is described in the Bhakti Ratnakar. This is a very wonderful book by Narahari Sakar, which describes the activities of the Goswamis and subsequent devotees after Lord Chaitanya's immediate manifestation and presence. As far as our information goes, Srila Jiva Goswami composed and edited at least 25 books. They are all very celebrated. And they are listed as follows: Harinamamrita Vyakarana, Sutra Malika, Dhatu Sangraha, Krishnarcha Deepika, Gopal Virudavali, Rasamrita Sesha, Sri Madhav Mahotsav. There's a wonderful Madhav Mahotsav Das in Los Angeles who's doing amazing service with Harinam. He plays a big loud recording of Indra and plays along and gets people jumping and dancing at Comic-Con. And anyone see that video? He's at Comic-Con and all the the young people dressed up in various things are all getting into it, and there's like these fanatical Christians trying to heckle it, but it just... Madhav Mahotsav, Sri Sankalpa Kalpa Vriksha, Bhavarta Suchika Champu, Gopal Tapani Tika, a commentary on Brahma Samhita, one on Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, one on Ujjvala Nilamani, Yogarshvastava, one on Gayatri Mantra as described in Agni Purana, a description from the Padma Purana of the lotus feet of the Lord, 17, one of the lotus feet of Srimati Radharani, Gopal Champu in 2 parts, and 19 through 25, the 7 Sandarbhas, Krama, Tattva, Bhagavat, Paramatma, Krishna, Bhakti, and Priti Sandarbhas. They are ascending, as we can see. Priti Sandarbha is the topmost Sandarbha about the topmost form of love of Godhead. Actually, here is a very wonderful, from Bhagavat Sandarbha, Srila Jiva Goswami's definition of Bhagavan. He who is the very form of existence, consciousness, and bliss, who possesses inconceivable, multifarious, and unlimited energies that are of his own nature, who is the ocean of unlimited, mutually contradictory qualities, such that in him both the attribute and the possessor of attributes, the lack of differences and varieties of differences, formlessness and form, pervasiveness and centrality, madhya matva, all are true, whose beautiful form is distinct from both gross and subtle entities, self-luminous, and consisting entirely of his own nature, who has unlimited such forms that are manifested by his chief form called Bhagavan, whose left side is beautified by Lakshmi, the manifestation of his personal energy suitable to his own form, who resides in his own abode, along with his associates, who are furnished with a form that is a special manifestation of his own splendor, who astonishes the hosts of Atmaramas, quote, those who take pleasure in self, unquote, by his wonderful qualities, pastimes, etc., which are characterized by the play of his personal energy, whose own generic brilliance is manifested in the form of the reality of Brahman, who is the sole shelter and life of his marginal energy, called the living entities, jivas, whose mere reflected energy are the modes of nature, gunas, visible in the unlimited phenomenal world. He is Bhagavan. After the disappearance of Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanat Goswami in Vrindavan, Srila Jiva Goswami became the Acharya of all the Vaishnavas in Bengal, Orissa, and the rest of the world. And it is he who used to guide them in their devotional service. In Vrindavan, he established the Radha Damodar temple, where we had the opportunity to live and retire until the age of 65, when we decided to come to the United States of America. When Jiva Goswami was still present. So this is a very important aspect, personally, in our Krishna consciousness movement, that Srila Prabhupada was given shelter directly at this temple of Shri Radha Damodar, the place of Rupa Goswami and then later Jiva Goswami. Radha Damodar temple was not desecrated by the maniac tyrant Aurangzeb in 1670 because the architecture and design made it appear to be a common residence from the outside boundary wall. So everything there is still intact. It was the place where all the Goswamis came to meet. The 6 Goswamis had their own bhajan kurtirs in most cases. Each one had several places around Braj Mandal where they would stay. Like, for example, Rupa Goswami, he stayed in Vrindavan, of course. He established the Radha Govinda temple, which is on the eastern side of Vrindavan city, whereas Radha Damodar is more west of that. But he had a very important place where he actually composed some of his most important books, Terakadamba, which is near Nandagram on the way towards, Sanket, the meeting place halfway between Varshana and Nandagram. And that's been developed very, very nicely. It's a very, very favorite place for ISKCON devotees. When we first kind of, we meaning devotees in the movement, leading devotees, came to understand its importance in the late 80s and 90s. I had the opportunity to take part in that initial enthusiasm, so I'm very happy to see how the place has grown and been developed, and its importance is expanded very much. So this place of Radha Damodar is very, very important, and that our Srila Prabhupada was given residence there. And still, to date, even though so many changes and perhaps political differences of opinion, but Prabhupada's room is still there, and that's a very important place to go and get blessings and inspiration. When Prabhupada took his first devotees and disciples there, the World Sankirtan Party, in the fall of the latter part of 1971, they can understand this is the place where Prabhupada planned the Krishna consciousness movement. When Jiva Goswami was still present, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj compiled his famous Chaitanya chart. Could someone else read for a moment? I'm having a little difficulty.
Srila Jiva Goswami inspired Srinivasacharya, Narottam Das Thakur, and Dukhi Krishna Das to preach Krishna consciousness in Bengal. Jiva Goswami was informed that all the manuscripts that had been collected from Vrindavan and sent to Bengal for preaching purposes were plundered near Vishnupura in Bengal. But later he received the information that the books had been recovered. Srila Jiva Goswami awarded the designation Kaviraj to Ramachandra Sena, a disciple of Srinivasacharya's, and to Ramachandra's younger brother Govinda. While Jiva Goswami was alive, Srimati Janavadevi, the pleasure potency of Sri Nityananda Prabhu, went to Vrindavan with a few devotees. Jiva Goswami was very kind to the Gaudiya Vaishnavas, the Vaishnavas from Bengal. Whoever went to Vrindavan, he provided with a residence and prasadam. His disciple Krishnadas Adhikari listed all the books of the Goswamis in his diary.
Okay, it's 9 o'clock, and should we continue or should we conclude? There's another full page here, and it's basically accusations by the Prakrita Sahajiyas and other non-devotees and how trying to disparage and discredit Jiva Goswami, but how this is all nonsense. That's right. Okay, so we pray to Srila Jiva Goswami. Very important link in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya for his mercy today. And today is Christmas Day for the Sunday feast. I think many people will choose to make this an important holiday destination for them, so we can take part enthusiastically in the Sunday feast, the kirtan, the 6 o'clock artik. Is very nice to have devotees here and preaching to the guests. Prabhupada created the Sunday feast so that the general public could have the opportunity to associate with the devotees, because by associating with devotees, one can see that there's a different way of acting and thinking and desiring and become attracted to the way of becoming a devotee of Krishna. So very important that we give our association to the people, and especially to newcomers who come here after all the hard work that we're doing on Harinam book distribution, to invite people to come to the temple. So when they come here, we should be here, not disappear into some crack and crevice somewhere. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhāgavatam ki jai, Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol.